Hey everyone, this is Eddie, and today we are going to talk about restitution, and we are going to reference the case Cotnam versus Wisdom. So let's go ahead and zoom out. So we are under ContractsRemedies, and they can, for a question, they can ask you what are remedies that are available, or what are legal remedies that are available. Now this is one of those areas of law that you do want to mention, especially when they ask you about legal remedies. So you have the compensatory remedies, expectation, you have consequential, incidental, but this is, you also want to throw in there restitution, even though restitution is not considered a compensatory remedy. And in fact, when it comes down to being awarded damages, you can be awarded both compensatory and restitution damages, but we're not talking about that. The question might just ask you what remedies are available. Okay, so when examinees, they get this question, they'll answer somewhere along these lines. Okay, restitution, and then it's to prevent unjust enrichment, and then you might have a quasi-contract, and then for the measure of damages you might have the fair market value. Now you will get points for that, and that is very common, but I want you to get points, and I want you to get even more points. I want you to just dominate this area of law, because restitution it does sound that simple, but something tells you, right, there's something more going on here. So today we're gonna break this down, and you're gonna totally control this. You're gonna be like, oh my goodness, this stuff is great. Okay, and your law professor or the bar grader is gonna be like, oh my goodness, who is this examinee? All right. Okay, so we are going to talk about two tracks here under restitution and unjust enrichment. Okay, we're going to talk about two tracks. The first one is a contract that is implied by fact, and the other one is a contract that is implied by law. So two tracks. Now, the thing about contracts that are implied by fact. So there you have the intent to form a contract, and you also have assent, whether that assent is express or whether it's tacit. So just remember that for now. Okay, I'll go ahead and repeat it just because it's so important. So for implied-in-fact agreements, you have intent and you have assent, whether it's express assent or whether it's tacit. And you might also have an unenforceable contract. And the measure of damages right there are for reasonable value of service, quantum meriut. Now, let's go to the other tract, okay, the other tract under restitution and unjust enrichment. Implied-in-law. So before we talk about implied-in-law contracts, I do want you to notice something. I want you to notice that we did not mention quasi-contract when we talked about implied-in-fact. Okay, and there's a reason for that, because that's actually a term that is attributed under implied-in-law contracts. Now, that's where we now discuss quasi-contract. Now there, as opposed to the previous track we talked about, for these kind of contracts, there does not need to be an intent to form an agreement. And also, the assent does not necessarily have to be there. So you can form a contract here under implied-in-law without having an acceptance and without having not even an offer. Okay, the court could just come and say, okay, we're gonna create fiction, and we're gonna create a contract based on fiction of law, and that's where you get your quasi-contract. So the court's gonna say, abracadabra, there is a contract here. And the measure of damages right there would also be reasonable compensation for services rendered. So again, just to highlight the importance of this, implied-in-fact, you do have intent and you do have assent, and for implied-in-law, you do not need assent or intent, and that's where you get your quasi-contract contract from. And look at this video on Superman, and it's going to give you a good idea of what they mean by implied-in-law. And also, I want to say this before I go on. The most common between these two tracks for the written essay is the implied-in-fact type. But I want you to understand both, because of course for the multiple choice, knowing, understanding these two tracks will help you. And also there is a link here at the bottom with more explanations and exercises. Hope this video helped. Until soon.